Good day, this is the Law Dog from Specialty Pistol Forums again. Today we're going to be doing some load development. The cartridge we're working with today is the 300-221, also made famous by the name of the 300 Whisper. A cartridge has gained a lot of popularity within the metallic silhouette shooting community and is known to be an overall good cartridge. J.D. Jones came up with his version known as the 300 Whisper, which is proprietary to SSK Industries. Also very similar to the 300 AAC Blackout cartridge. Today we're working with a Thompson Center Contender. It's a 1976 model, non-easy open frame, running a custom match grade machine 14-inch fluted barrel, 1 to 10 twist. We'll be working with 168 and 178 grain AMAXs with a couple of different powders. The data that we're loading off of was given to us by none other than our own SP member, NV Reloader, who ran this data through his quick load program and came up with some suitable numbers for these particular bullet and powder combinations. The 300 Whisper, or 300-221 as it's known, is a cartridge based off of either the 221 Remington Fireball or the 223 Remington cartridge, both of which are shortened down, shorter than a factory 223 brass and expanded out to a 30 caliber, and can run anywhere from the lightest of your 30 caliber varmint bullets up to and including the heavy 200 plus grain match bullets for subsonic performance. The loads that we're running today are in the middle. We're running 168 and 178 grain AMAXs, and the powders that we're using today are Accurate 2460 and Accurate 5744. We'll be doing all of our shooting, as you can see, off the bipod with the rear sand sock for load development, and all loads will be shot across chronograph for records purposes. Granted, it may not be ideal for load development, but I found that when doing load development, I like to do my load development based upon how I'm going to be using the pistol in the field. The way you see the pistol set up, it sports a Dave Dolan, also known as Dave D on Specialty Pistol Forums, custom grip and fore-end, with the only modification being made is I've installed a bedding bar in the fore-end itself that I fabricated out of square steel stock, and it essentially allows the barrel to float within the forearm. We're using a Harris swivel series leg notch bench rest bipod out front with a rear sand sock. Optics wise, we're running a Thompson Center 2.5 to 7 power illuminated reticle scope on a Leupold dual dovetail base and rings. I've done very limited work with this barrel recently. I've not had the barrel that long, and I'm just now getting around to doing some serious load development on it. I've not worked with either of these two powders that we're shooting today, and that's what's led us down here to the range today to put these across chronograph to see how they do. One thing I will say when doing any load development, pay particular heed to your manufacturer's recommendations for a particular powder and bullet combination, and primers as well. Never exceed the maximum listed load data. Start with the minimum and work your way up slowly. The charges I have today, I've loaded 3 bullets per charge weight, laddering up in half grain increments. We're going to look at the numbers across the chronograph as well as check the cartridges for any signs of pressure. Again, pay close heed and due diligence when reloading, and always follow your manufacturer's specifications. Here we go. We're going to start off with the 168 grain AMAX running the 5744. We'll see how she goes. Recoil is very mild. Let's take a look at our cartridge. Everything looks good. We've got no signs of excess pressure. The primer looks good. And the cartridge itself looks good. We're getting no sooting on the neck, so that tells me that we've got a good clean burn. This was the minimum charge listed through quick load. Well, let's try a couple more and see how they do. As you can see, the 300 Whisper has very light recoil. It's not a very hard recoiling cartridge at all, and lends itself well to the metallic silhouette shooting, for which it's found a wide following. It's enough rambling. Let's take a look at some more targets here and see how she does. Again, the cartridge looks good. No sign of any excess pressure. Again, 3 for 3, everything looks good. Primer looks good, case looks good itself. As you'll see, I've got numbers written on the cartridge itself. What I like to do is put the powder type as well as the charge weight of that particular powder on my brass. That way I don't get my cartridges mixed up, and it allows me to go back and later on look when I'm back home from the range. It allows me to again take a look and see how my cartridges did. I'm going to get some chronograph numbers here. Well, we've concluded the 168s over the accurate 5744. Numbers look decent on the chronograph, and actually a couple of loads we'll take a little further look at. The pistol was shooting high, and we wasn't able to get our first load on target. However, after quick scope adjustment, we're back on target with 5744. I'm not going to adjust anything and shoot the 168s with the 2460 next. I'm going to hold center mass on my bullseye downrange at 100, put one through it and see where we hit at, and go for broke. Enjoy. Next up is the 168A Maxes over 2460. A little bit of primer flattening, but otherwise brass looks good. You can see it's a very mild recoiling cartridge. Looks like I might have got a hold of that and pulled a little bit. Again, likewise, cartridge is looking good. No signs of obvious pressure. Again, just a very, very little bit of primer flattening, but it's nothing to be concerned about. A little bit of soot on the neck. Tells me that that charge is just a tad, maybe just a tad light. Bore looks good. And again, looking at her target. Got two within about an inch and one out. I believe that's the one to pull. We'll go down and take a look at some chronograph numbers and finish going through this batch of 2460 and see how we do. I hope you enjoy it. I'm having a ball. And we're back. So far, the 300-221 has done pretty good with the 168s, and it seems to favor the accurate 2460 over the 5744. Got some decent groups. I actually had a group or two that was right around 1 MOA. Actually, if you discount the flyers, I had one cutting bullet holes. And we're going to concentrate on that load a little bit later on down. Next, we're going to start with the 178A Max over 2460 and see how she does. Like I said, so far the numbers have looked pretty good across the chronograph. Quick load was off a little bit as far as possible velocities, but nonetheless, pretty happy because we're getting some good ES and SD numbers. Barrel seems to be a shooter so far. We'll tinker a little bit more with these heavy bullets and see how she does. So stand by and we'll get you some footage with the 178A Max over 2460. Let's get some mirrors on and we'll get started. Again, looking good, no signs of pressure. Well, let's send another one. If you see me fiddling a lot with my grip, I try to get the same grip every time, and I like to let the pistol do its thing. And that looks pretty promising so far. You see, we're shooting a fast burning powder and getting a little bit of a fireball out of it. It's not to be, or that's to be expected rather. That's these shorter barrels. It shows me that payload in that powder is going to get a little bit of a fireball. That's not something I'm overly concerned with, especially if the numbers look good. It looks good on paper, and we're not exhibiting any signs of pressure. We'll send the last one, and then we'll pause our recording and check our chronograph numbers. And we're back. The loads look pretty decent with the 2460 over the 178s. Next, we'll be running the 5744 with the 178A Maxes and see how they do. Didn't do half bad with the 168s. We're going to see how the 178s do and go from there. Again, the cartridge looks really good. No sign of pressure. That looks really promising. Looks like I've got two touching down there. Albeit just a shade high, but it looks really good from here. And it looks like 3 shots under an inch at about 2 touching. That looks really good. Looks to be about 2 inches high. Elevation's, or windage is dead on the money. Elevation just a tad off, but that looks really good. That's what we're after. Brass is showing no sign of pressure. Primers are looking good. We'll get the chronograph numbers off that load, and that's one that we'll be looking at a lot harder. I can promise you. Stand by. We're back to continue our 178 AMAX adventure here. 5744, the last load, which looks darn good on paper. Sub MOA load. Had a little bit lower velocity, but had a really good extreme spread and standard deviation. We'll ladder up another half grain and see how we do. Again, case is looking really good and no sign of pressure whatsoever. Primers look really good, no flattening. And we'll run up another half grain. So far what we're seeing on paper with the first load of this 5744 and 178s, I'm really liking the looks of it. I just hope that the rest of these will come in there with it. As you've seen, there's no fireball with this 5744 versus the 2460. It's a faster burning powder than the 2460. Looks really good cartridge wise. And we're going to lob our last one in there and see how we do. So far, so good. Again, brass looks great. No sign whatsoever of any pressure signs. I'm going to go forward and again take a real brief intermission to get some chronograph numbers, and we've got 6 more cartridges to go through. Stand. This is the Law Dog SP forms again. We wrapped up some load development for the 300 Whisper, aka the 300 221, and so far to date the best groups we came up with were with the 178 AMAX, over accurate 5744. This was our starting sub MOA under an inch. As you can see, if it'll focus in, there's our starting load. And when we bumped up another half grain, that was the end result. As you can tell, I'm more than pleased with this. It's what I was after, was to get a sub MOA load through this cartridge, and I'm very thankful we did. Either one of these loads will really work. You're cutting bullet holes and shooting sub MOA with a specialty pistol, something to be tickled with. A couple of things to note: when you're shooting the SPs, you know, by all means, get a good working load for your pistol. That's paramount in downrange performance. I exclusively hunt with a handgun, everything from a 22 rimfire up with the Contender, as you've seen probably on some of my videos, all the way up to a 300 Winchester Short Mag XP. When you're doing load workup and getting started into SPs, get a good working load for your pistol. When you're out here shooting, a couple of things to be real considered of. You know, really watch your load data. Again, pay close attention to it. Never exceed the manufacturer's recommendations for a powder, bullet, and primer combo. In other words, stick within what they tell you to in the load data. Secondly, when you're shooting your SP, consistency is the key. Consistency in grip and trigger control. You know, really take the time to make each shot count. As you've seen on some of the video, I've got a hold of a round or two myself. It's not uncommon for me to get a hold of the trigger every once in a while. It happens to the best of us. Especially if I've had a little bit too much coffee to drink or something along those lines, yeah, I may get a hold of the trigger. But, you know, ensure that your grip's the same every time. If you do like I do and you shoot from a bipod and a sand sock, make sure that each shot breaks the same, that the grip's the same on every shot, and the tension on your sand sock's the same every time. That's going to aid in consistency and accuracy downrange. It's going to give you the most out of your pistol. And again, when you can take your SP during load development and you come up a couple of targets that look like this, you know, this is where it all comes together. SPs are a world of fun. If you've never indulged in the world of handgunning or handgun hunting, by all means, get up with someone that shoots one. It's a totally different world opened up to you, and something I do and not look back. I absolutely love it. I hope that it gives you a little more insight into the 300 Whisper. Here's a cartridge close up for you. As you can see, it's a pretty neat little cartridge. This is a cartridge loaded with the 178 AMAX that we were shooting today. Pretty neat little fella, all in all. Pretty neat little fella. It's a cartridge that's really fun to shoot, and as you can see, it's a mild recoiling cartridge. Looking forward now that we've got a good load worked up with it. I think I'm going to fine tune this load a little bit more, but it gives me the opportunity to get dialed in and hopefully do some hunting with this thing here. It's early January 2013. We've had an uncommonly warm day out here on the range today. High today up in the 60s, or low 60s rather. And while it's uncommon, I would rather do my load development during warm weather as I would during cold weather. It gives me a little bit more idea on what my pressures are going to look like when the weather warms up. But I'm hoping to get you some more footage here in the near future with the rest video combo that we came up with, which is what we're filming off of today, by the way. I've made a few modifications to it. But we're hoping to get, hopefully, the 300 Whisper with this 178 grain AMAX turned loose on a coyote here in the near future for you. Again, this is the Law Dog with Specialty Pistol Forms, and I pray that you've enjoyed the video as much as I have making it.